a few weeks ago, but I'm hearing some things that made me give it again because it's the center of what's coming out of Rome on November 1st. It's the center of it. By way of a title, How the Sabbath Was Changed by the World. Today I want to answer the question which so many believers, new and old, have been concerned about with regard to the Sabbath question. How did this change take place? Substitution of Sunday for God's Sabbath, Saturday, as the day of worship. This is possibly one of the most disturbing and in all of this turmoil around this coronavirus thing. I don't even call it a virus because this thing was launched in a lab. I don't even concern myself with, they've got it down to 2. And one of them was in the United States, the other was Wuhan, China. I don't even concern myself any further with that because that will be taken care of in time with everything else. These questions, of all religious questions, among thinking believers today, this one about the Sabbath is most important. Unfortunately, the issue is not examined publicly because many don't care. That's simple. It's that simple. Many don't care. And if a change is put forth, most will honor it because most of them already are. But, as I said before, this question is most important. The issue is not examined publicly very often for reasons that we'll consider today. But multitudes have wondered how, why, and when this change came about. We have established in previous sermons that the Bible itself speaks with absolute consistency on this subject. No changes are documented in the Bible. None. In both the Old and New Testaments, there is not a shadow of variation on the question of the Sabbath. The seventh day, Saturday, more specifically, Sunset Friday to Sunset Saturday, is the Sabbath. Is the only day ever designated by the term Sabbath in the entire Bible. Not only was Yeshua a perfect example in observing the weekly Sabbath, seventh-day Sabbath, but all his disciples followed the same pattern after Yeshua had gone back to the Father. After his martyrdom at Golgotha, or some call it Calvary, yet no intimation of any change of the day is made ever. The Apostle Paul, who wrote pages of counsel about lesser issues of Jewish and Gentile conflicts, had not one word to say about any controversy over the day of worship. Circumcision, foods offered to idols, and other Jewish customs were readily challenged by early Gentile believers in the church. But the weightier matter of weekly worship never was an issue. Why? For the simple reason that no change was made from the historic seventh day of Old Testament times. In fact, from creation itself. Had there been a switch from the Sabbath to the first day of the week, you can be sure the controversy would have been more explosive than any other, especially for Jewish believers. History gives some clues. If the change did not take place in the scriptures or through the influence of the apostles, when and how did it happen? In order to understand this, we must understand what happened in the early church soon after the apostles passed on and passed off the stage of action. Paul had prophesied that apostasy would take place soon after his departure. He said that it would be a falling away from the truth. Turn to this in Jude, the first chapter, the first verse. Jude, a servant of Yeshua Messiah and the brother of Jacob, to the one called in Yahweh the Father, having been set apart and having been kept by Yeshua Messiah, mercy and peace and love be multiplied unto you. Having made all haste to write to you about the common salvation, beloved, I had need to write to you, to exhort you, to contend earnestly for the faith once delivered to the saints. For certain men crept in secretly, those having been of old previously written into this condemnation, ungodly ones, perverting the grace of our Yahweh for unbridled lust, and denying the only master, Yahweh, even our master Yeshua Messiah. But I intend to remind you, once knowing these things, that Yahweh, having delivered a people out of the land of Egypt, in the second place, destroyed the ones not believing. And those angels, not having kept their first place, but having deserted their dwelling place, he has kept in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of a great day. One doesn't have to read very far into early church history to see just how that prophecy was fulfilled. Gnosticism began to rise up under the influence of philosophers who sought to reconcile Christianity with paganism. At the same time, note this, it's still there. A strong anti-Jewish sentiment became widespread among believers. Very speculative interpretations began to appear regarding some of the great doctrines of Messiah and the apostles. Most of this began with Emperor Constantine. By the time Constantine was established as the emperor of Rome in the early 4th century, there was a decided division in the church as a result of all these factors. I think most of you know that Constantine was the first so-called Christian emperor of the Roman Empire. The story of his conversion has become very well known to students of history. Their version of it is a little different from what's written down there in their own minds, but this is the story. He was marching forward to fight the Battle of Milvian Bridge when he had some kind of vision and saw a flaming cross in the sky. A cross? Little things jump out at you along the way. Underneath the cross were the Latin words meaning, "In this sign, conquer." That sign is pagan to the core. Why would any celestial body tell you to conquer in this sign? Constantine took this as an omen that he should be a Christian, and his army as well. He declared all his pagan soldiers to be Christians and became very zealous to build up the power and prestige of the church throughout the empire. Through his influence, great blocks of pagans were taken into the Christian ranks. But in reality, they were still pagan at heart. And they brought in much of the paraphernalia of sun worship to which they continue to be devoted. We all know about the adoption of Christmas and Easter into the church. At the same time, many other customs were Christianized and appropriated into the practice of the church as well. Sun worship, principally. Easter, Halloween. Don't cringe. Valentine's Day. St. Patrick's Day. And many others. You see, at this time, the cult of Mithraism, or sun worship, was the official religion of the Roman Empire. It stood as the greatest competitor to the new Christian religion. I say that with a hint of sarcasm because it's well placed. It had its own organization, temples, priesthood, robes. You see them to this day. Everything. It also had an official worship day on which special homage was given to the sun, S-U-N. That day was called the Venerable Day of the Sun, S-U-N. It was the first day of the week. From it, they get their name, Sunday. When Constantine pressed his pagan hordes into the church, they were observing the day of the sun for their adoration of the sun god, small g. It was their special holy day. In order to make it more convenient for them to make the change to this new religion, Constantine accepted their day of worship, Sunday, instead of the Christian Sabbath, which had been observed by Yeshua and his disciples and taught to all that came to them. Remember that the day had been prepared for this already by the increasing anti-Jewish feelings against those who were accused of putting Yeshua to death. Books were written about this by one in particular I'm thinking of, by Martin Luther. I've told you all about that one. Not much, but read it on your own. That's filthy stuff in there. These and other divisive feelings were caused by the writings and teachings, as I said, of Martin Luther. These feelings would naturally condition many Christians to swing away from something which was held religiously by the Jews. Any feelings are put in motion by almost anything during this pandemic. Much of the same feelings were all around Rome at this time. It is therefore easier to understand how the change was imposed on Christianity through a strong civil law issued by Constantine as the Emperor of Rome. This time, it'll be easier because most people, those who faithfully observe any at all, most still observe Sunday. Too much work to somehow use the Sabbath against him. Lazy as he is, I knew all the time somehow that it would get back to Sunday. The very wording of the law, by the way, can be found in any reliable encyclopedia. Those early Christians, feeling that the Jews should not be followed any more than necessary, were ready to swing away from the Sabbath, which was kept by the Jews. Appropriate sarcasm used there. Historical accounts. No one who has been with us for any time will be greatly surprised by the explanation I've just made. Many authorities verify that what has been said. There are historians, Catholics, and Protestants speaking in harmony about what actually took place in the 4th century. After Constantine made the initial pronouncement and legal decree about the change, the Catholic Church reinforced the act in one church council after another. For this reason, many official statements from Catholic sources are made claiming that the church made the change from Saturday to Sunday, which they did. But let's move on to a statement from the Catholic Encyclopedia, Volume 4, page 153. The church, the Catholic Church, after changing the day of rest from the Jewish Sabbath, or seventh day of the week, to the first, made the third commandment refer to Sunday as the day to be kept holy as the Lord's Day. As usual, they referred not to this book at all in doing this. But we have to. What does the Bible say? In Malachi, the 3rd chapter, the 6th verse. Malachi, the 3rd chapter, the 6th verse. For I, Yahweh, have not changed, and you, O children of Jacob, have not perished. From the day of your ancestors, you have turned away from my rules and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says Yahweh of hosts. But you say, how shall we return? Just do it.
That's so true.
It's not even there. That answer is easy. A kid could have found that one if they were looking for it. Just do it. Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 17th verse. Matthew, the 5th verse, 17th chapter. I mean, the 5th verse, 5th chapter, the 17th verse. Do not think that I have come to destroy the law. This is Yeshua talking. Or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle. The easiest way to put that about jots and tittles is any punctuation. Any punctuation. No punctuation will be changed. Till the heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle shall in any way pass from the law, until all is fulfilled. What has been fulfilled so far? Not very much. The first 3 holy days and all that came with them. Verse 19. Therefore, whoever shall relax one of these commandments the least, and shall teach men so. That contains some powerful language for anyone that even teaches anyone else of this. That will somehow also take in your closeness to those people that continue to do it, although they know better. But whoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. 20. For I say to you that your righteousness shall exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees, unless your righteousness shall exceed that of the scribes and the Pharisees. That's a pretty low bar. You shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to the ancients, you shall not kill, and whoever shall kill shall be liable to the judgment. In all of this, Catholicism takes credit for the change, admittedly. Now a quote from the Catholic Press newspaper in Sydney, Australia. Sunday is a Catholic institution, and its claims to observance can be defended only by Catholic principles. From the beginning to the end of Scripture, there was not a single passage that warrants the transfer of weekly public worship from the last day of the week to the first. The Catholic Mirror of September 23rd, 1894 puts it this way. The Catholic Church for over 1,000 years before the existence of a Protestant, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. Many of you have seen copies of that last missive. I have one around here somewhere. I've had it for years. But the mystery is that no one has changed after all these years, knowing this. But they will soon. But to save their lives, they will think. They will think. A lot of people, though, will see it as I can fit in with everybody else.
Yeah, that's right.
Continue to do what we've done. And don't have to change anything. But no changes in that Laudato Si document. But the Bible says something else. That document is a 7-year document. But the Bible says that after 3.5 years, everything will change. That's not in that document. The document is all over the internet now. Laudato Si is the document. Laudato Si, separate word. Laudato Si. Translated, that means pray, all of you. Yes. Laudato Si. They will soon see what this means. Revelation, the 13th chapter, the first verse. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 diadems or crowns, and on its heads names of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and its feet as of a bear, and its mouth as a lion's mouth. And the dragon gave its power to it. You know who the dragon is, and he gives it his power and its throne and great authority. And I saw one of its heads having been slain to death, For a long time, the Catholic Church had no power in the world. They had a lot of influence through the Jesuits and so forth. Read about them on your own. There's a lot there to read about the Jesuits. And most of our public officials are also Jesuits. I looked it up about others, but some aren't. But they're still Catholics, and they will go along with this. And I saw one of its heads as having been slain to death, and its deadly wound was healed. And all the earth wondered after the beast. And they will do that again after this thing takes power. And most of our nations are basically broke now. The only ones that have any money are the Arab countries and the Vatican. That's not an accident. Verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with it? And a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies was given to it, and authority to act 42 months. How long is was given to it? He says that Laudato Si will take 7 years. And it's their way of cleaning the atmosphere and all of that. Verse 6. And it opened its mouth in blasphemy toward Yahweh, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and those tabernacling in heaven. And it was given to it to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given to it over every tribe and tongue and nation. Notice this in Daniel, the 7th chapter, the 21st verse. Verse 8. And all those dwelling on the earth will worship it, those of whom the names had not been written in the book of life of the Lamb's book of life, in other words, having been slain from the foundation of the world. There are people around that don't believe that the events of this book are real. They've been waiting for so long, and some have died and still waiting. They will laugh at you when you use the words of this book to prove something in the world's lying scheme. Yeah. But there is still time. Once the man of sin appears, those who have not made the change will have little time to make that change. Revelation, the 13th chapter, the 11th verse. Revelation, 13th chapter, the 11th verse. And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. Out of the what? This is among the people. And it had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. And it executes all the authority of the first beast before it. And it causes that the earth and those dwelling in it should worship the first beast, of which was healed its deadly wound. And it does great signs, that it even causes fire to come down out of heaven onto the earth before men. A neat trick, one done by Elijah, and in the eyes of some will legitimize this beast, and some will even call him by name. Verse 14, and it deceives those dwelling on the earth because of the signs which were given to it, to do before the beast, saying to those dwelling on the earth to make an image to the beast, who has the wound of the sword and lived. How is he going to do that? You'll see very soon. And I don't believe this is symbolic language here. I might be wrong, but time will tell. Verse 16, and the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and slaves. This trips a lot of people up because we think we're not slaves because we have a wage. Anybody that works nowadays knows the difference. There isn't any. It causes them that they give to them all a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, even that not any could buy or sell except the one having the mark on their hand or their head, or the name of the beast, or the number of its name. "666" is that number. But there is a mark and a sign for God's or Yahweh's people, and always has been and always will be the seventh-day Sabbath. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. When you just read this scripture, Revelation 13:16, and you said that the mark was 666. It just brought me to mind that I was hearing that in New York, they're not allowing you to eat in restaurants unless you have this shot. Right. They're preventing people from eating or going into stores or whatever. Is that also a mark? One of the signs of that mark?
Not officially.
Excuse me?
Not officially. But it might become that at some point.
Okay.
Ruby.
Every year in East Chicago, where I live in the town in the harbor side, people gather on I think around Elm Street, because they claim that they've seen this image of they're called Jesus, and they actually show pictures that how a certain formation on a tree appeared. And every year, right before Christmas, people truly believe that Christ showed up at this house. And they have all these statues with candles. When you people come, it's a shrine. It's a shrine. But they truly believe it. And there's police that have to guard as people walk in, making sure that nothing is damaged or the tree is touched, because the fact that they true so, they, like you said,
It's statuary.
And
Images. That's
images
the
that
stock
people
and
are
trade
going
of the
to
Catholic
wear.
Church.
People are going to really think this is real. This is the real thing, and it's not.
Melina.
I can't remember who wrote the book, but it's a very interesting book. It's called The Golden Vow. It talks about the trees and how tree worship came about.
The Golden Vow.
The Golden Vow.
I have a copy of it.
Like how the bow breaks.
I have a copy of it.
Okay.
It's a very, I
I got it from an interesting source.
have.
It was in the books that were given to me by pastor of the University Church,
Oh, wow.
of all people.
But if you can get the book and read, you find out all about the trees and stuff. I mean, it's very interesting. It really is. And how they made these trees safe.
Wow. That's something.
Isn't that a false idol?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the whole idea.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole idea.
One of the stories in there says that the hunter was going through the forest and he bumped up against a tree and broke one of the branches off. So he had to pay the price of it. And they pulled his navel out and wrapped it around the tree to put the life back into the tree.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Now, this is a very interesting book, and it tells you all about the worship of trees and how it came about. And this
Paganism in general.
tree. It's all pagan. Paganism.
Yes.
Called The Golden Vow. I forget the author's name.
Anyone else? Short one today. Even if you have it at home by yourselves, have it. It is mandated.